Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the B&I Show for this Saturday, January the 2nd, 2016. Happy New Year, hockey fans. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season. We are back from the holiday break, Isaac and I. Hopefully, Isaac, my co-host here, had a wonderful holiday season as well.
Yeah, it went pretty well.
What was some of your favorite Christmas gifts?
I mean, I got a Leafs hat that was pretty nice.
Here you
I found out the Leafs have a magazine.
go. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, all right. Um, we have plenty of things to get to today. We'll begin with the NHL quick hit section. The voting for the All-Star game taking place this month, I believe, at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, Tennessee. The voting to select the captains for each division that has ended. We have our four captains, and Isaac here has the results of the voting.
Yeah, so for the Atlantic Division, we have Jaromir Jagr of the Florida Panthers. He is going to be the captain there. In the Metropolitan Division, we have Alexander Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals. In the Central Division, we have Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks, and in the Central, we have the least surprising guy you could have. We have John Scott as the captain of the Pacific All-Star team.
Yes, everyone was clamoring for John Scott to be the captain. I suppose somewhat similar to the previous All Star game and how a whole nation essentially was getting behind Zemgus Girgensons of the Buffalo Sabres. Sort of similar in that um, they're the players that you least expected to make an All Star team, and John Scott will now essentially be playing the role as captain of some of the current greats of the Pacific Division. He will be surely captaining a team with Anze Kopitar, Taylor Hall, Jonathan Quick, among
Yes,
others.
but we're assuming none of the rest of the team has been named yet. But yeah,
Yes, we're assuming, but surely. Your thoughts on these four captains, Isaac?
Yager was the most surprising one to me. I didn't think he would get captain. I wasn't even sure if he was going to be in the All-Star game at all. But I'm happy for him. He really deserves it. Yager's been amazing this season, and so might as well give him the All-Star game captain. This could be his last one. I don't think it will be, but there's a chance that it could be, and so might as well do it.
Yes, you have to make the most of it. Now, who did you say was the Metropolitan captain?
Alexander Ovechkin of the Washington Capitals.
Oh, yes, excellent. One of the more likable figures, one of the more uh, bubbly personalities in the NHL. Good on him. Good for the fans for voting for him as a captain.
Yeah, I'm really happy about it. I like Ovechkin. He's entertaining.
All right. And there you have it, your four captains. Once again, Jaromir Jagr of the Florida Panthers. He'll be representing the Atlantic. Alexander Ovechkin, the captain of the Washington Capitals, will now also captain the Metropolitan Division team. Patrick Kane of the Chicago Blackhawks, he will be leading the Central Division. And yes, fans, you voted for him, and your uh, your hard labor has uh, been successful. In the Pacific Division, it will be John Scott of the Arizona Coyotes captaining the Pacific Division. All right, next up in the quick hit section, we do have a trade, folks, to report on. Isaac has the details of this trade.
So during the Christmas break, there was a roster freeze where nobody could make moves. A lot of speculation to be had, but no moves could be made. But right when that thing came off, I forget what day it was, but once GMs were allowed to make moves, we had our first trade back. Our second trade that involved NHLers this season. I guess you could say NHLers with an asterisk because neither of them really played in the NHL this season. We have Zach Cassian moving from the Montreal Canadiens, moving to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for Ben Scrivens, former Leafs and LA Kings goaltender.
Now, this is a interesting trade, I think, for both sides. On one hand, you have Montreal adding to their goaltending depth. I believe Carey Price still out with injury. Mike Condon has been getting most of the workload for Montreal. I do know, Isaac, you pay close attention to the two teams involved in this trade. What do you make of first Montreal adding to their goaltending depth?
It didn't make a lot of sense. Um, Neither Condon or Tokarski was playing exactly well with they were neither were playing well, and so when they're in a slump and the goalies can't really make a save, Condon was doing fine but not great, and really um, the Habs just couldn't score. Nothing was going in the other team's net. And so it was weird that Bergeron decided to go and get another goaltender. That's not really. He's basically a career backup goaltender in exchange for someone that was going to play for your team anyways, that you already traded somebody else for to get. So it was a weird move. It was basically nothing for nothing. I don't think Cassin will do much if he makes it to the NHL again, but that was a strange move when I feel like he should have been adding to the scoring rather than the goaltending.
And on the flip side of that, Edmonton adding another skater among their ranks with former Vancouver Canuck Zach Cassian. Your thoughts on that end of the trade?
I feel like it made more sense for the Oilers than it did for the Habs because the Oilers now they're getting more offensive depth, and they had too many goalies already, and Ben Scrivens was just taking up another spot there. And so it was good for them to move a goaltender out and bring in somebody that you can work on as a project. At worst, he contributes for your AHL team. So I have no problem with that from an Oilers perspective.
I did find that rather uh, interesting on the Montreal side as well. Of course, you know, you do have Carey Price, who, excuse me, doesn't really appear to be showing many signs of slowing down. He still has a lot to look forward to in his career, but he is currently injured at the moment, I believe. But adding more goaltending depth when you already have Condon and Tokarski, I I find that amusing. You could say that Scrivens has the experience, being a backup of Jonathan Quick, but you do know who else was a backup of Jonathan Quick? Jonathan Bernier. So
Yes, he was.
yes, I'm not quite sure about that. And also, Tokarski, for those of you who remember, did end up starting in a playoff round when, of course, Carey Price was out with injury. So both Condon and Tokarski, they have seen plenty of valuable playing time in the NHL in their careers. So I'm not sure what much that would do. I don't think it was a bad move per se. As you said, just nothing for nothing, perhaps more of a lateral move. And in a
Yes.
way, yes, this does make a little bit more sense for the Edmonton side.
Yeah, that's you've covered that pretty nicely.
All right, and wrapping up the quick hit section, we have another milestone, a captain in the NHL, um, recording a very important milestone for his team. Isaac has the details on that.
Yes, we have Captain Shane Doan of the Arizona Coyotes, formerly the Phoenix Coyotes, formerly the Winnipeg Jets. He now holds the record for goals scored in that organization. I'm trying to find the number correctly. It was very strange that I did not. Okay, here we go. He has 380 goals, so that is now number one all time in the Coyotes organization. Scored that in a 4-2 win versus the Jets, which is actually hilarious if you
Yes,
ask me. Um,
goal number 380 scored against the Jets. Yes.
so he now has the yeah, he has the record for goals scored by a Coyote. Before him, it was Dale Howardchuk. Dale Howardchuk had the record before Doan snapped it.
Shane Doan, he is an intriguing player to me. Um, I would consider him Yarmir Yager light in a way. He's getting up there in age, and he's getting up there to the point where most hockey players would slow down. Um, excuse me. He does seem to be slowing down in a sense. He doesn't exactly do amazing Yager-like things for his age, but he isn't just some traffic cone on the ice. You know, he's still there. He's making an impact, but in a sense, most of the impact seems to go unnoticed. Essentially,
Yes, he's for me he's interesting in another way. A lot of people talk about how great of a person he is. I'm sure off the ice he is, but on the ice he is one of the most low key dirty players in the league. He gets away with a lot of hits and a lot of stuff, and it's actually pretty interesting. But that said, though, he's been a remarkable player. He had last year the slump was real. He had 36 points in 79 games. But this season, though, he has 19 points in 28 games, and I believe he is a UFA at the end of the season. So there's a good chance that he gets moved near the end of the season, trying to get that cup.
and what is the current age for Shane Doan?
Shane Doan is 39 years old.
39. He's definitely getting to the age, to the point in time where players normally start to slow down. And at 39, you could perhaps make the argument that he's to the age where players essentially retire.
Yes, yes.
So, congratulations to Shane Doan, the captain of the Arizona Coyotes, scoring his 380th career goal, moving him all time into the Winnipeg slash Phoenix slash Arizona Coyotes franchise. And that concludes the NHL quick hit section. We now move into one of the more popular traditions in the National Hockey League that has been the tradition essentially the entire Barack Obama administration, to put into perspective. Excuse me. I am, of course, talking about the NHL Winter Classic, which yesterday took place at Gillette Stadium, the home of the NFL's New England Patriots and the MLS's New England Revolution. The Winter Classic there between the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins, another milestone in one of, if not the most storied rivalries in all of sports.
I would argue that it is the I would argue that it is the most oh geez, I'm forgetting the word, but like these two teams hate each other. Yesterday, was the 910th time that those two teams had faced each other.
Combined, the two teams, for a couple factoids here, which will lead us into box score wrap up. Oh dear. My throat is
No,
already struggling,
rest in
folks.
peace.
All right. Let's see here. The two teams have a combined 5 outdoor games. Montreal with 3 now, having played in 2 Heritage Classics in 2003 and 2011, I believe, if I remember correctly. And Boston, this is this is the second Winter Classic that was hosted in the Boston area. The Bruins also hosted the 2010 Winter Classic at Fenway Park in Boston. This one in Foxborough, of course, a suburb of Boston, you could say.
I would assume. I have no idea.
And to get to the score now, the Canadiens scoring the second most amount of goals for a winning team. The Detroit Red Wings still hold that record, defeating Chicago 6-4 in the 2009 Winter Classic. But Montreal, they were all over the Bruins, and they get the 5-1 win. And with Matt Bolesky's goal in the third, Matt Bolesky ensuring that there remains no shutout in the history of the Winter Classic. And let's get you the box score here. My phone is having issues cooperating with me here. Okay. David Desharnais for Montreal. He opened scoring just a minute 14 into the game. He gets his 8th of the season. 2 more goals by the Canadiens in the second, 2 minutes into the second. Paul Byron, who also scored in the third, his 6th and 7th goals of the season. He gets his first of the game 2 minutes into the second. And towards the end of the second, Brendan Gallagher with his 10th of the season, that at 17:20. Matt Bolesky made it a 3-1 game, 3:56 into the third. His 8th of the season, assist by Adam McQuaid and Ryan Spooner. That would be Boston's only goal, as Montreal answered with 2 unanswered. Max Pacioretty with his 16th of the season, and Paul Byron with his 7th. Now, I know the two of us excuse me, I know the two of us were watching this game. I know I was, and I know Isaac, as a follower, at least, of the Canadiens, was perhaps watching that game as well. And interestingly, with where the two of us live, we can provide insights on how the coverage went, too. I was watching on NBC. I assume Isaac was watching on whoever was airing it in CBC, yes. But first, to the analysis, the breakdown of the game, and we'll begin with Isaac while I continue to corral my throat.
I'm wondering if you'll make it till the end of the episode. You might.
I am as well. I'm wondering as well.
Yeah, I switched back and forth between the CBC and NBC footage or coverage there. Overall, it was a pretty standard CBC broadcast. You had Jim Hughes and Craig Simpson calling the game. And then you had Glenn Healy between the benches. And it wasn't anything spectacular. What about the NBC coverage?
I have to say, I am a big fan of Mike Emmerich. A big fan. I watch his goal calls on YouTube all the time. And I will say, though, I find him to be the best thing by far, really, about the NHL and NBC. I don't mind Eddie Olczyk, but he works better with Doc there. But Pierre, of course, I kind of hate to take part in the anti-Pierre circle jerk, but he was rather, or he had some rather questionable moments in the game, such as wondering aloud if perhaps the wind was a factor for why the Bruins were not playing so well.
Yeah, I saw that. That's funny.
Though I will say, once he mentioned that the wind had died down, and then Bolesky scored. So I don't know. Maybe he was onto something.
Oh, he
But
could have been onto something there.
mhm. But I found it to be just your standard game with Doc and Edzo and Pierre there. Of course, there was also some appearances. What's his name? Jeremy Roenick. He interviewed a couple people. He interviewed a Minuteman. That's when I was making Fallout 4 jokes. And he interviewed a couple Montreal Canadiens fans. We had the great Jim Cantori from the Weather Channel providing weather updates throughout the game, as he has been doing there uh, for the past few seasons. The Weather Channel and NBC, they are owned by the same parent company, so they tend to borrow people. But yeah, I thought it was a decently broadcasted game. And now the game itself. I do have to say, certainly, Boston had issues, let's just say.
Yeah, I mean, I know practice the day before on the 31st when they had practice. Both the Bruins and Canadians were complaining about a corner on the ice. It didn't look like that was a thing. They said they had fixed it up for the game, but both teams were complaining about a certain corner on the ice that apparently was taking a couple guys out there. So, I mean, they fixed it, but it didn't look like it was the game itself didn't look like it was played that poorly. They everything looked like it was fine for an outdoor game. Uh, Preferably for Winter Classic, you want snow or something like that, but they didn't have it, and so once again, it wasn't a huge deal, but it adds to the spectacle when you have snow. But I don't think anything was lost throughout the way the game looked and felt without the lack of snow there.
I did notice it was in Mike Emmerich had mentioned it as well towards the end of the game, sometime in the third. It had begun to snow there. I do believe the temperature at puck drop was 40 degrees, but based on knowing how Northerners react to certain temperatures and seeing them all, excuse me, seeing them all
Jeez.
dressed in the heavy winter gear, um, I had assumed that the wind chill had made it much more frigid. But it's interesting to me. I certainly saw that Boston had their struggles pretty much the entire game, but it never really felt to me. I never really got that feeling that Montreal was just entirely in control of the game, you know?
Yeah, the first period there was. The first period was a lot of Montreal, but I think Boston only had two shots during the whole two period. Given though Montreal didn't have too many scoring chances, but there was Montreal controlled a lot of the first period there.
Hmm. That first period definitely went um, Montreal's way, but uh, especially in that third period too. Mainly as time went on, I found that Montreal. again, it never really felt to me that they had full control of that game. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Makes sense. I was just saying that although it may not have felt like it, that Montreal did indeed control a lot of the first period.
All right. And a few more things to discuss about the Winter Classic Monday, the Monday Winter Classic. The musical guests, they were
Yeah,
again
can we
not,
skip this part? I'm not I'm not trying to talk about these guys. I didn't
they
even
were
watch
again,
them to be honest. I watched
or
the closest thing to musical guests I saw were the national anthems. That was the only thing I saw.
you, you could say that. I normally like the Canadian national anthem, but I found that performance of it to be a little underwhelming. Granted, I found the American national anthem performance to be a little underwhelming as well, but they probably took the cake with the musical performances. I loved how, and I'm pretty sure all three bands that performed during the day did this too, when they motioned to the crowd to make some noise and they barely got any.
Oh, I thought you were gonna keep going after that.
Oh, I
The
was.
way you finished the sentence, you're like the way they moved to the crowd and they didn't get any. They just kind of left it there. Yeah, I noticed that too. At least I was told that they tried really hard to get people to make some noise, and people were not having it.
Hmm. And definitely one last thing to mention to wrap up the wrap up. Mm. The day before, I believe, that Sunday, yeah, the first annual, hopefully, women's winter classic between the Boston and Montreal teams of the NWHL took place, and the teams played to a 1-1 tie. But still, it must have been an amazing spectacle for the two teams to take part in.
Yeah, I mean, they pretty. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this because they didn't really handle it too well, whether it be the NHL and both women's league. Neither side handled it really well because you had the NWHL and CWHL for a long time refused to do anything with each other. They didn't want to do this, and then once they finally did decide to do it, you had you had Women's USA Hockey wouldn't let their teams go. So if like Hillary Knight couldn't be on the Boston team, and she's a pretty big draw for women's hockey there, and so it was pretty same. But then the NHL, I'm not sure if this is either an NHL thing or an NWHL thing, but they wouldn't stream the game anywhere. So if you want to see anything really, like you couldn't watch a game at all unless you got it through a Periscope feed, which
Hmm.
I mean isn't really the most ideal way to watch a game. So not many people tuned in because there wasn't a way to tune in. And then the fact that they didn't have three periods, which is a hockey game, and you have three periods, the fact that they had two halves, and then you let them play to a tie, it seemed like NHL didn't really care either. It's just like, yeah, okay, you want this, let's just throw this in, as opposed to actually showing that, or at least pretending like you care about the things that you're trying to promote. But I mean, there's my rant.
I certainly agree that it was not handled the best way, and I would hope that they're viewed as mistakes and that they learn from them. But uh, say what you will about women in professional sports, but I felt that uh, the this was good for the growth of women's hockey, which in turn is good for the growth of hockey in general, I think.
Yeah, yeah, there's no denying that. But if you can grow the sport in any way whatsoever, it's good for the sport of hockey. And so, you know, whether it be women's or even expanding into different countries, you do what you got to do to expand the game. And when you have an opportunity like this with two of the largest, or I guess the only two professional women's league in North America, why wouldn't you? You know, why wouldn't you take this opportunity and show that you care and try and grow the game? But I don't know, they didn't.
Yeah. All right. That concludes the Winter Classic wrap up from the weekend that felt like a weekend, but in reality was not. Next up, folks, we once again, for the second year in a row, have a NHL video game to review with me on the review. I gave you my honest thoughts and breakdown of NHL 15 last season for the Xbox One. And this time around, I have been playing some of the NHL 16 for the Xbox One, and we'll have a review for that as well. And I would like to treat this as a open forum, folks. So if you have any questions, something you wonder about the game, feel free to tweet at us at our HockeyCast. And also, Isaac, if you have anything, feel free to ask.
Will do.
So I know a lot of people they want to know how the gameplay mechanics work. So I'll start on that first. Honestly, I was never. It really wasn't the gameplay mechanics that sold me to NHL 15 and quite frankly 16. But I know that's a big thing on people's plates, so I'll address that first. Now, I'm not sure. I still can't quite put my finger on it, but I will say the game is a lot more challenging to me. Um, in 15, my preferred difficulty was All Star difficulty. A little challenging, but not too ridiculously challenging. And it felt like it came to me naturally. I would easily defeat the my AI opponent in All Star difficulty in 15, but in 16 this time around, it's certainly a lot more challenging. And I would assume that's what a lot of people are looking for. They're looking for that challenge, and it is challenging. It feels like that you have to be more strategic now, cycle the puck and make the correct passes, try to get the 2-on-1 and all that going. So it's certainly challenging in that regard. I haven't seen very many instances of the AI being smarter in a way, so I can't. I don't know what it is, but I can assure you it's definitely a lot more challenging that way. I still have yet to play as a goalie in a Be a Pro season. I rarely do that. I know that there's some people that do that. Um, so I'll be sure to try it out and report back on y'all with that. The gameplay modes, we can get to that next. Excuse me. They did bring back EA SHL, the EA Sports Hockey League, where you can uh, form a team with some friends and get together and play against another group of people. That was wildly popular in NHL 14. Much disappointment when NHL 15 for the next gen consoles did not have that, but they did bring that back. And honestly, I have yet to try it because honestly, I was never really a big fan of the EASHL, but just know that it is back, and I'm sure that a lot of you would be eager to try it out and see what it's like on the next gen consoles. Um, Hockey Ultimate Team, that's my thing. I'm big on the Hockey Ultimate Team. They the biggest improvement I've seen on it was adding single player seasons, such as with the online seasons where you can play games, get wins, earn enough points to move up to the next rate. Good lord. Move up to the next rank. You can do that in single player too, which I do like that. I still wish they'd bring back single player tournaments, but the Hockey Ultimate Team is there, and it has indeed made an addition from NHL 15 Hut. So I believe it to be an improvement there. Next, I suppose I will go on to presentation next. This was the main thing that has sold me, or that sold me to getting NHL 15 for the next gen consoles, the presentation and the graphics and all that. They did, of course, bring back the broadcast team of Mike Emmerich, Eddie Olczyk, and Ray Ferraro. Speaking of Isaac, have you always been curious as to why they opted to go with Ray Ferraro instead of Pierre Maguire?
I can't say I've been curious. I mean, it was interesting at first, but I've always, I've never really thought about it. I've never thought about having Ray Ferraro, who worked with TSN,
Mm-hmm.
going with Doc Emmerich and those who do NBC. I've never thought about that. Do you know why that is?
Yes, I had also mentioned this in the NHL 15 review, but I will go over it again. So the NHL division of EA Sports and EA Canada, they're headquartered in Vancouver.
Yes,
They
I
have
know
all their
that.
things. They have all their things in Vancouver. Their studios and everything. Ray Ferraro also lives in Vancouver,
Oh
and so
well,
to
okay.
save perhaps money and time and resources, they opted to go with a native of their headquarters city.
I see. Well, that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. The graphics, the presentation, they did get the overhaul. Uh, the current presentation is the current what you see when you normally watch NHL and NBC broadcasts. That current simple yet beautiful scoreboard that's in there. And new dialogue options for Doc and Edzo as well. I you such as whenever you play in the home arena that Eddie Olczyk had played on or coached, Doc will mention that to Eddie, and he will give his thoughts on that team or that city or what have you. And my favorite is whenever you get a good cycle going, whenever you get really good offensive pressure going, you'll notice that Doc will start to say more things, and he'll start to raise his voice, kind of what you do expect to hear from him watching a real life game and seeing a team get offensive pressure. He'll start to get more into it. Um, he does that a little there. Uh, and another good thing is the it it didn't really feel like they pay, copied and pasted or cut and pasted things on there. Like what I mean, for an example, NHL 15, you'll hear too much of the Bruins, pause, and then say something as if he just said the whoever team, and then they add that wherever. It's more it it feels more authentic. Instead of that, he'll now say Bruins leading shots or whatever. Just normal things there. Um, and this time they did have more money in the budget to get more stadium rights. So now you no longer play at Chicago Arena or Carolina Arena. You're now at the United Center and the PNC Arena. And you also get more of the authentic uh, goal horns and goal songs as well. You play as Chicago, you can hear Chelsea Dagger. You play as Montreal, you can hear whatever that song is. Isaac would know. Um,
The what song?
the goal song for Montreal.
Oh yeah, it has a name, but I could not tell you off the top of my head what it was. It's just a French rapper did it for Montreal.
Yes, that
It's catchy.
that horn and song that's in there. One notable absence, though, Buffalo does not have "Let Me Clear My Throat" because they had decided on that goal song after the game was released, and it's pretty unlikely that that they will not be adding that at any point. And so I will give my rating, and if Isaac has any questions, he will feel free to ask.
Nope.
Out of out of a 10, I think I have to give it a 7. It's it's certainly an upgrade from NHL 15. It feels more challenging. You'll get more of a challenge, especially if you play on the higher difficulties. Um, the graphics, the presentation, it has continued to increase, and the gameplay modes have gotten a little bit better, especially since a lot of people, I'm sure they'll like the return of EASHL. So NHL 16, my official rating, I give it a 7 out of 10. A great rating.
It was certainly a rating.
And let's see here. Did we get any questions on our? Did we get any questions from the listeners?
I will check that right now. I ran a poll on the Twitter right now, or not right now, but when we were talking about the All Star game, and I asked, I said, who least deserves to be a captain at the 2016 NHL All Star game? And surprisingly, Alexander Ovechkin, not surprisingly, but Alexander Ovechkin was the only one that was not voted for there. So people love their Ovechkin.
The one that is receiving the most votes is Patrick Kane, and it is a sensitive subject, one that we will not get into, but it is definitely understandable why um, many would have their disagreements with Patrick Kane being a captain.
Yes, it like you said, it's a touchy subject, it's a sensitive subject, but I can understand what they're doing on. But firstly, if you were to look at the season he is having so far, he deserves to be at the All Star game. Now you get into the whole thing whether should he be a captain or not, and captains were fan voted as well. So it's not like the league said, "Hey, go be a captain," because to be honest, if they were going to choose someone from the Blackhawks, we all know it would have been Taze instead. But the fan vote giveth and the fan vote taketh away from people's happiness. So
Patrick Kane, currently, we have 11 votes, currently receiving 55% of those votes. John Scott in second with 36. And of course, I can also understand the disagreements with John Scott being a captain, definitely.
yes, I can see that too. Now
Mm,
I have no problem with that because I don't see why people would take the All Star game seriously
yeah.
last year when people were drunk all over the place there.
And I I think as long as John Scott has a great personality and really looks like he has fun on the ice when he plays, fine by me.
Yeah, I have no problem with it.
Yaromir Yager has received 9% of the vote, and Alex Ovechkin, not a single vote. These 11 people here seem to be in agreement that Alexander Ovechkin is great for the All Star game for such a spectacle.
Alexander Ovechkin is great. Period.
Yes. Alrighty. That concludes the NHL 16 review and our brief look at Twitter. Um, Next, we will now go into the Blues and the Leafs weeks in review. This for the week for this week for the week of December 28th to January the 3rd, and we'll begin with the Leafs week in review. And let me set you up here, Isaac. Pull up the Leaf schedule. The Leafs, they have played 2 games, will have played 3 games by the end of this week, and they split those 2 games, played back to back on a Tuesday and Wednesday. So without further ado, here is Isaac with the Leafs week in review for this week.
Alrighty. And so, as you said, if we're only doing the 2 games, then we face the New York Islanders on the Thursday, this past Thursday here. And the Toronto Maple Leafs playing anybody is certainly an interesting time, you know? I'm looking at the Leafs record, and you know what? If we win tonight, we'll have an even number of of wins and regulation losses. So, because right now we are 14, 15, and 7, which, to be honest, I thought we were a lot worse. So that's a surprise there. But this game versus the Islanders was certainly something to watch. You know, because the Sunday before this game, we had beaten the Islanders 3-1, I believe. And so, you know, we're looking to beat them again. They still don't have Yaroslav Halak. We're rolling with Thomas Greiss again. You go, hey, let's do this one again. And so at the end of the first period, it's 3-1 Islanders, and the Leafs looked awful. But you go, hey, it's 3-1. We can come back. We've done it before. It's not a huge deal. And you know, we start off the period where we make it 3-2, and you go, yeah, one more goal, we tie it up. And then the Islanders kind of just took over, and they made it 6-2. So you know, the Leafs were not looking good that night, and Bernier was not looking good that night. And um, so during intermission, Babcock decides he's going to put Reimer in there. Reimer coming back from injury. You just want Bernier out of the net. You know, just what's the worst thing that happen? He lets in the goal. But Reimer comes in, Leafs score a goal, make it 6-3, and that's the final there. So Leafs end up losing 6-3. But hey, James Reimer's back. They play the next game over in Pittsburgh versus Phil Kessel and the Penguins. And you go, hey, okay, Reimer's back. Good. We have our starting goalie back. Well, it turns out before this game or after the Islanders game that Reimer said that he felt uncomfortable and that he was really, you know, he didn't feel comfortable enough to play this game. And so Babcock had no choice other than to call up Antoine Bibeau from the Toronto Marlies and roll a tandem of Jonathan Bernier and Antoine Bibeau because both Garrett Sparks and James Reimer are injured again. So that's pretty crazy. Now, this game was actually one of the most exciting Leaf games of the year, and right now, probably would be game of the year in my opinion. Right now, like Leafs game of the year, not NHL wide game of the year, but Leafs game of the year. This would definitely be one. Dion Phaneuf gets his third of the year. It's funny because he wears number 3. It'd make it 1-0. But a couple minutes later, Chris Kunitz from Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin ties up the game. We start the second period. And Jake Gardiner also gets his third of the year. This is from James Van Riemsdyk and Tyler Bozak. But a couple minutes after that, Sidney Crosby gets his eighth of the year from Brian Dumoulin. So it's a 2-2 tie, and we go to the third period, and nothing happens there. So we go to overtime, and nothing happens there. So we go to the shootout, and both Peter Holland and P.A. Parenteau score for the Leafs. Nobody scores for the Penguins, and the Leafs beat the Penguins by a score of 3-2. And I believe that concludes the season series where Phil Kessel had 0 points in all 3 games versus the Leafs, which is actually amazing if you ask me. The story of this game was definitely goaltending. You had Bernier, who led in 6 goals the night before, come in and absolutely shut the door, made a couple of big saves for the Leafs. At the other end of the ice, Matt Murray, of course, a Toronto native, shutting the door against the Leafs. They had about 3 shorthanded breakaways in this game, could not bury on either of them because Matt Murray was amazing in this game. And Matt Murray was also sent back down to the AHL this game now that Marc-Andre Fleury is reactivated from injured reserve. And so the NHL, trust me, Matt Murray is definitely NHL ready. And it's up with the Penguins to see whether they want to keep him, which why wouldn't you keep him? He's young and he's playing great. Or they would trade him and try to go all in this year and still see Fleury as your starting goaltender for the next however many years. But now the Leafs roll into St. Louis rolls into Toronto tonight, and Toronto will take on the Blues, but we will talk about that later. And that concludes the Toronto Week in review. Although now, if we want to talk about the best player of the week, I would have to give that to Michael Grabner. He had goals against the Islanders in both games, I believe, which was actually very interesting. Because usually it's a former Leaf scoring on the Leaf and not the other way around. And so for Michael Grabner to have goals in both games, no, Michael Grabner did not have a goal in the Thursday game the versus the Islanders, but he looked very good. That's probably why I was so confused. Ever since Mike Babcock moved Michael Grabner up to the top line versus, I mean, geez. Ever since Mike Babcock moved Michael Grabner up to the first line to play with Nazem Kadri and Leo Komarov, Michael Grabner has looked very good using his speed and killing a lot of penalties. And so Michael Grabner was the best player of the week. Worst, it'd be really easy to give it to Jonathan Bernier based on his performance in the Islanders game. But the game before that he was good, and the game after that he was really good. So I'm going to give it to Matt Humwick because he was awful. He is possibly the worst excuse for a shutdown defenseman ever. He is not very good defensively, and when your partner is Morgan Rielly, who is also not very good defensively, you can't keep jumping up on the rush like a forward and then leaving Morgan Rielly on 2-on-1s almost every game. It's amazing how bad he is defensively, and he frustrates me more so than any Leaf this season. And so Matt Humwick is the worst player of the week. In terms of team performance, obviously best team performance was against Pittsburgh and the 3-2 win, because it could have been a lot more than 3-2 if Matt Murray hadn't shut the door on us so many times. And the worst team performance was the 6-3 loss to the Islanders.
All right, and that concludes another weekly recap of the Toronto Maple Leafs. We now move to the Western Conference, the Central Division, and the St. Louis Blues. We can review with me. Like the Leafs, the Blues will have also played 3 games this week, have played 2 games this week, and have split both of them, both against Central Division teams. We begin with Tuesday night's game While the Leafs were getting shelled by the Islanders, the St. Louis Blues and the Nashville Predators were doing battle on NBCSN. Barrett Jackman returning to the Scott Trade Center for the second time this season. And the Blues did end up taking this one in overtime, 4-3. However, it wasn't exactly the best, game. It wasn't a pretty win, but in this division, you need all the points you can get in the worst way. We start out. Two teams traded goals in the first. Dmitry Ashkin, who has been fairly underwhelming this season, he got his second of the season, and I would hope that this one would be a confidence booster. Then again, I had believed the first goal of the season to be a confidence booster, but those two were pretty far apart. However, Jake Allen gave up a shorthanded goal to Matthias Ekholm off the face-off, and it happened so quick. Nashville won the face-off, passed it over to Ekholm, who shot it past Allen for the shorthanded goal. It was tied at 1 until Robbie Fabry, who continues to do some pretty great things for the Blues. He gave them the lead in the second. That was his 9th of the season. Kevin Shattenkirk got his 6th goal of the season in the third. And all of a sudden, it is 3-1 Blues. And the Blues were holding steady for most of the third period after that, but Shea Weber scored his 11th, and it's 3-2. I'm thinking we're still in good shape. Just need to hang on for these last 4 minutes or so, and we get the win. But Colin Wilson got his third of the season at 18:28 and ties it at 3, and so we go to overtime. However, I'm told that Nashville's 3-on-3 overtime game is, it's not very strong, to say the least. And Alexander Steen scored his 13th goal of the season in the overtime period. 4:01 into the overtime on a breakaway, I believe. And the Blues got the win, 4-3. I wasn't exactly a big fan of giving up a 3-1 lead and allowing a allowing a Central Division opponent to gain a point, but again, in this division, perhaps the toughest in hockey or in the NHL, you need points in the worst way. However you can get them, get them. However, for as brilliant as Jake Allen is against Nashville, he is brutal against the Minnesota Wild, our opponent Thursday. Outshot the Wild 34-29, but lost 3-1. And Kevin Shattenkirk, the lone goal for the Blues was the one that gave them a lead. Kevin Shattenkirk on the power play at 8:42, his 7th. But Nino Niederreiter tied it at 16-12. And for the most part, it appeared destined that we'd be heading into overtime based on how the two teams were playing for most of the third. But Eric Holla, close to the midway point, 11:28 in the third, gave the Wild the lead. Thomas Vanek with the empty net goal. Now, I know it may seem easy to score on the empty net, but it happens way too much for us, and it's a bit of an issue. 3-1 win, and say what you want about Devin Dubnyk, if he's overrated and whatnot, but he outplayed Jake Allen again. And I believe the stat is the Wild have now won 4 of the last 5 against the Blues, and all 5 were started by Jake Allen. Those include the playoffs, I believe. All right. And I will mention, well, no, I'd rather save that. Okay. So we'll get to the superlatives now. And best performance, I have to say, hmm, I suppose I will give it once again to Jake Allen. Um, Shut down a somewhat impressive Nashville team. Shut them down once again. Um, we have now won 3 games against Nashville, mostly due in part to Jake Allen. Uh, the defense didn't exactly do their best job in the third period of that Nashville game. The worst player, hmm, let's see here. Who would I give the worst player to? I suppose, how about Magnus Payarvi? Because he continues to be on the first line and he continues to do nothing. It's it's Vladimir Sobotka all over again here, and it's driving me crazy. Uh, Magnus Payarvi, he's on. I'm repeating myself again. He's on the first line, but he isn't scoring. He isn't providing points, and that's really what. The, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're on the first line, you're expected to provide goals and points, right?
I mean, maybe it depends what's being asked of you. Usually, when you're on your first line, yeah, you're supposed to be contributing points, but it depends how the coach decides he wants to use you. Because when Leo Conroy was put on the first line with Nazem Kadri and James Van Riemsdyk, he was just there to be a physical presence to make sure that Nazem Kadri could do his stuff without worrying. But in turn, accidentally, I guess you could say, started scoring points. But that wasn't why he put him up there. So it really all depends on how the coach wants him to be. If Hitchcock wants him to be scoring points, then yes, but not then yeah.
Well, I also found it questionable that even though you have Vladimir Tarasenko on your team, you still believe Magnus Payarvi to be the best player on the team, as Ken Hitchcock had openly stated. Um, so best player Jake Allen, worst player Magnus Payarvi. Best and worst team performance. Obviously, playing 2 games and splitting them. Give the best performance to the win, the 4-3 overtime win against Nashville. The Blues they regrouped after giving up a lead and won it in overtime. And the Wild continues to be a thorn in their side. Worst team performance goes to their game against the Minnesota Wild. And of course, as Isaac mentioned, the Blues will be heading up to Toronto this afternoon to play the Maple Leafs, and we will get to that in a bit. But first, we did mention the Winter Classic, but there was also one other game played last night, and we will get that to you once I scroll over there. Okay. The late performance, the Vancouver Canucks hosted the Anaheim Ducks, a Pacific Division matchup, and not a lot of goals. 1 goal in regulation for each team, and Vancouver got the 2-1 win in the shootout. Anaheim outshooting the Canucks 28-25. The scoring started 7:24 into the second when Ryan Kessler on the power play scored his 5th of the season, assist by Chris Stewart and Mike Santorelli, former Maple Leaf. In the third period, Vancouver answered back 10:24 into the third. Chris Tanev, his 2nd of the season, assist by Alex Burrows and Lyndon Vey. And that sent it into extra time, both teams earning a point. Nothing occurring in the overtime. And in the shootout, 6 shooters took part, but Alex Burrows had the only goal as Vancouver got them the 2-1 win. I do want to stop down on this game for a bit and talk about Anaheim for a bit. They, of course, we remember their disastrous start to the season, and we had assumed after a sound victory that they would have turned their performance around. However, taking a look at the Pacific Division standings, we are into the 2016 portion of this season, and Anaheim is still only in fifth. Uh, in fairness, they are 2 points behind Arizona and Vancouver. They are a point behind San Jose, but they are also only a point ahead of the Calgary Flames. And the Pacific Division, outside of Los Angeles, it seems, of course, has not been very strong this season. So, Anaheim, what do you make of them?
Pardon? Who do I make of? It stopped there for a second.
Oh, what do you make of Anaheim and their rather slow, the rather sluggish 2015 portion of this season?
I'm not sure what I make of them. They should be a lot better than they are. There's not really a clear-cut reason as to why they're doing so poorly. But that said, I don't watch them enough. So there could be a great reason as to why they are slumping the way they are and why they only have 1 point more than Calgary. But I mean, I guess Getzlaff not really producing would play a role in that. But I feel like it's just one of those down years, and next season you'll see the Anaheim that was supposed to do or was supposed to play like this year. But at the same time, news came out like just as we started the podcast that Cam Fowler is going to be injured for 4 to 6 weeks. So that's not helping them either. For like I feel like this year they're not going to really add a deadline unless they feel like they can jump a team like Arizona, which you know what they could looking at it now because they have Anaheim has 37 points and the Coyotes and San Jose, sorry, the Coyotes and Vancouver both have 39 points. So like 2 wins and you're in the playoffs there, or you're in the playoff spot. That is very So Anaheim could be on the up because of the weak Pacific Division there.
And looking at who is usually some of their uh, better performers, Ryan Getzlaff, the captain, he only has, well, he has 23 points this season. He has 20 assists, but only 3 goals. Corey Perry, who has won and has contended for a few Rocket Richard trophies. He does have 13 goals this season, but if I remember correctly, at this point in most other seasons, he would probably be up to the 20s by now in goals. All right. In Vancouver, currently in third in the Pacific. They do have the same amount of points as Arizona, but the Coyotes have 2 games in hand on Vancouver, thus putting them in second place. All right, that was the one other game from yesterday. We now move into today's games, and we did mention the St. Louis Blues and the Toronto Maple Leafs. They will be doing battle again today. But before we get to that and our other previews, let's see here. We have 2 games going on right now, and we have 1 game that is final. Let us get to the final first. From the First Niagara Center in Buffalo, New York, the Detroit Red Wings and the Buffalo Sabres did battle early this afternoon. Buffalo did outshoot the Wings 35-23, but Detroit got the 4-3 win. Scoring started in the first at 12:59 when Brad Richards scored his 4th of the season. That was followed on the power play, 7:59 into the second, a power play goal by Riley Sheehan, his 6th of the season. However, Buffalo made it a game, tied the game to be specific, with back-to-back goals by Jack Eichel. First on the power play, assist by Rasmus Ristolainen, and at 14:26, and then Eichel's 13th of the season, assist by Zemgus Urbansons and Brian Gionta. It was at 17-27. We were tied at 2. However, 3 goals in the third, 2 by the Red Wings, gave them the win. Sam Reinhart on the power play, unassisted, his 9th of the season. 8:58 in the third for Buffalo was their third and final goal. 2:27 in the third, Henrik Zetterberg with his 7th of the season. And the game winner scored at 17:10 by Tomasz Tatar, his 12th of the season. Jack Eichel with 2 goals on 2 shots earned first star of the game. Riley Sheehan and Brad Richards with the second and third stars of the game. 2 games going on right now, and we'll get to this one because there is some importance of it to Isaac here. We are currently in the first period, about 6 minutes to go, in the Rexall place in Edmonton, Alberta. The Edmonton Oilers, they currently lead the Arizona Coyotes 2-1. Shots are 7-6 in favor of Arizona, who is also on a power play at the moment. Yes, 3 goals scored in the first. Steve Downey opened the scoring for Arizona. 6:56 into the first with a wrist shot, his 3rd of the season. Back-to-back goals by the Oilers. Taylor Hall scored his 16th of the season at 7:55. And Jordan Eberle, his 9th of the season on the power play with assists by Mark Letestu and Benoit Pouliot. 11:39 gets Edmonton the 2-1 lead, but Benoit Pouliot, an interference penalty against Viktor Tikhonov, and Arizona currently on the power play now. In the other game going on from the Staples Center in Los Angeles, California, the Los Angeles Kings and the Philadelphia Flyers seems to always be a spirited game between the two. There's a little under 7 minutes to go in the first, and the Kings have a 1-0 lead in the advantage in shots, 9-5. Dwight King opened the scoring 7:33 into the first, his 2nd of the season, assist by Marian Gaborik. And that is where we are at in that one. And let's see here. Between the two of us, 5 teams are followed. One of them for Isaac is currently playing, and the other 3 between the two of us will be playing later this evening. But we begin, of course, with a bit of a mini pregame show and our thoughts and analysis on these 2 teams facing each other. From the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, Ontario, 6:00 p.m. Central Time start. It'll be the Toronto Maple Leafs and the St. Louis Blues. Isaac, you are the home team, so why don't you start us off with your analysis of this matchup?
I'm not sure how much analysis I can really give that I haven't already. We beat the Blues last time we played, but that was with Garrett Sparks in there. But then again, Bernier could have another one of his Pittsburgh performances, or he have another one of his New York performances. So there's really no telling how a team like this is going to play. They can either all show up or they cannot. If we could not let St. Louis score within the first 10 minutes, that'd be great because we cannot play in the first 10 minutes of game. Other than that, just kind of limit their effectiveness and kind of score when you need to score and just keep playing the way we have been playing because now we're on a steady upswing, and that's very good for us if we can continue to play the way we've been playing.
I will go down the projected lineups for you, Isaac, and feel free to tell me what you make of them. First line, Van Riemsdyk, Bozak, and Parenteau. Grabner, Kadri, and Komarov, the second line. Third line is Winnick, Holland, and Joffrey Lupul. And fourth line, Matthias, Mark Arcabello, and Brad Boys. Any anything stick out at you there?
No, those are pretty standard. Those are the lines we've been rolling with for the last 5 games or so, other than Arcabello, who was only called up because Byron Fraze is out with an injury. But no, other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Those are the those are the lines we've been rolling with, and why break something that's been playing well.
And the defensive pairings: Gardner and Phaneuf, Hunwick and Riley, and Martin Marincin and Roman Polak. Jonathan Bernier slated to get the start for the Maple Leafs in that one. All right. And on the St. Louis side of things now, I tend to agree with what you seem to believe in that, honestly, this one could go either way. And I make that assumption based on the goalie matchup. The last time these two teams played in the Scott Trade Center, it was a 4-1 win by Toronto. And I do believe, well, I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, I believe that was Allen and net.
Yes, I believe so. Well, it was Allen and then Elliott for 2 minutes, and then Allen again.
Oh, yes, Hitchcock did the thing that he likes to think works. Um, but yes, Jake Allen will see playing time against the Maple Leafs again. We'll see the start against the Maple Leafs again. One thing I will note, oh, happy day. I love these lines. First, Magnus Payarvi is not on the first line. Oh,
They
happy
can switch.
day.
What I've noticed with NHL.com lines is a lot of them are wrong,
Well,
unless it's been like 2 games with those lines. Odds are it could be right. I'm just saying usually, unless
well,
it's been those lines, then they're wrong.
well, and I will say, I had forgotten about this too, but Patrick Berglund will be returning to the lineup now against the Maple Leafs tonight. And according to these lines, the projected lineups, he will be on the second line with David Backes and Payarvi. Vladimir Tarasenko, who missed the who missed the Minnesota game with an illness, he is in back in the lineup. He is on the first line with Alexander Steen and Paul Stastny, which has probably been my favorite line of this season. That line has been pretty good. And then we have Robbie Fabry, Yori Laterra, and Troy Brower. On the third line, and the fourth line, Yashkin, Brodziak, and Ryan Reeves. I don't expect much from Yashkin, especially when he's playing on the fourth line. The third line could be a little interesting. Yori Laterra has been rather underwhelming this season, but Fabry has been pretty great. And Troy Brower, he's not been terrible. But I do like the first line a lot. Watch out for that Steen, Stastny, Tarasenko line. The defensive pairings, the Maple Leafs will once again be facing off against former Maple Leaf Carl Gunnarsson. He
Yay!
is slated to be paired with Robert Bortuzzo as the third pairing.
And just wait till Polak gets a hat trick.
Oh dear. He was 2 goals away in that first matchup from his hat trick. Bouwmeester and Petrangelo, your standard first pairing, and Colton Parayko and Shattenkirk, the second pairing. Jake Allen once again scheduled to get the start. One thing I will note that I am not a fan of, if it were up to me, and honestly, thank God it's not, I would have preferred to scratch Yashkin in place of Scotty Upshall. Scotty Upshall is a healthy scratch, along with Joel Edmondson and Cody Hodgson. What? Why am I seeing his name here? Did we get Cody Hodgson? What's happening here?
Something NHL lines not being accurate.
Ugh. I don't know. But Edmonton and Upshaw, they are healthy scratches. Um, yeah, I personally would have preferred Upshaw to be in the lineup for this one because he's not bad. Put him on the third or fourth line. Hell, sometimes even the second line. He can produce. But yeah, I I agree with you overall in that I really don't know what to expect. Judging from these two games alone that you discussed, Jonathan Bernier has been inconsistent at times, it seems, and I just don't know which one to expect tonight.
Well, that makes two of us.
Right. So there's the summary of your preview, folks. We don't know. And the other game of note to preview from the PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina, it is the Carolina Hurricanes and the Nashville Predators. This one, I like the Canes' chances. They, as you know, have been playing amazing hockey as of late. The Washington Capitals, in their last game, um, they were going for their 10th straight win, but that was ended at the hands of the Hurricanes. And let's see the goalie matchup for this one. It is Pecorine going off against Eddie Lack, who he has been improving his play a little. I'm liking what I've been seeing out of Lack as of late. So I think the Canes I think they have a good chance at this one. Nashville haven't exactly been impressing me as of late. All right, and we will now go along the list here, make our predictions, and we'll include our upset picks of the week too. We'll start with two games that are going on right now while we still have a chance to pick. Edmonton and Arizona. Edmonton currently has the 2-1 lead, but Isaac, your prediction on how that one will end up?
I like the Oilers' chances here, so I'm going to choose that the Edmonton Oilers win today.
I have to say I also like the Oilers' chances here. I see Arizona on another power play at the moment, and looks like they'll have the main advantage to start the second. But I do like the Oilers' chances in that one. Los Angeles and Philadelphia, and there is a score update. Drew Doughty on the power play, 17-16 in the first. It is now 2-0 Kings. His seventh of the season, assist by Jake Muzzin and Anjay Kopitar. But Kings Flyers, I got to go with Los Angeles. They've been the hottest team from the Pacific Division, which isn't saying much, but trust me, they are good.
Yeah, I mean they're also up 2-0, so it's kind of hard to not choose them.
Yeah. All right, and now the rest of the games. Toronto and St. Louis.
I'm going to use my upset pick of the week and choose Toronto here.
I will express confidence, and I will go with the Blues here. They haven't been having the best, or they didn't have the best December, but they seem to have picked it up a little bit. They did get 2 wins against the Central Division leading Dallas Stars in the month of December, and they did get a couple of other Central Division wins. They shut out a Boston team on the road. They have in a way been picking up their game as of late, so I'm hopeful that they can get the win here. I'm going with the Blues. Carolina and Nashville.
Nashville, Carolina. I'm
Yes.
going to. Well, I kind of gotta go with Nashville here.
I'm using my upset pick of the night here, and I'm going with Carolina. I've really been impressed with the way the Canes has played as of late. Not so much for Nashville.
All right, that'll be an interesting one there.
And the other games from tonight, from the Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay, Florida, 6 o'clock Central start, the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Minnesota Wild.
I chose Minnesota for this one here.
I will browse the goalie matchup for this one. It will be Devin Dubnyk taking on Andrei Vasilevsky. Interesting. I think I'd also have to go with Minnesota, actually.
All right, interesting.
Yes. From the BB&T Center in Sunrise, Florida, 6 o'clock Central start, the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers.
Rangers and the Panthers. I have to go with the Rangers on this one here.
Interesting.
No. You know, I'm gonna go with the Florida. I'm gonna go with the Panthers.
Oh. All right, the old switcheroo there. I will also go with Florida. The Rangers have been in a bit of a collapse as of late. From the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, 6 o'clock Central start, the New Jersey Devils and the Dallas Stars.
I have to go with Dallas here. It's Dallas. You kind of have to go with them in these situations, right?
It is Antiniemi starting in net for the Stars and Corey Schneider for the Devils. I will have to go with Dallas, of course. It should be a good game because Corey Schneider is a solid goaltender, but if only the team in front of him were as solid. From the Consol Energy Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 6 o'clock Central start, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Islanders. This game will be on the NHL Network for those of you that have that.
Who do you have in this game?
I will go with the Islanders here. The Penguins have been having some issues as of late, and the Islanders, they seem to have been picking things up.
For the sake of making sure we don't choose everything the same, I'm going to go with Pittsburgh here.
Oh, just like Dave used to do it. All right. From the Nationwide Arena in Columbus, Ohio, the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Washington Capitals. This, the last of the 6 o'clock Central Time starts.
Once again, go ahead, choose.
I will, of course, go. Oh, God, Isaac, do you really want to do this?
Yes, this is how
No, I will go with the Washington Capitals here. They're still a hot team, and they should be a hungry team now after having their quest for 10 straight wins snapped.
Well, I'm not stupid enough to choose the Blue Jackets. Save that one for when the Jackets win tonight. So I'm also going with the Capitals.
Oh, yes. Alrighty.
I can't wait till the Jackets win tonight. It made me look like an idiot for saying that.
Oh, God. Well, let's see what the goalie matchup is for that one. It is Braden Holtby for the Capitals and Curtis McElhaney for the Blue Jackets. So, that could go either way, actually. I'd still go with Washington, though. 2 games starting at 9 o'clock Central Time. The last 2 games here for the day from the Pepsi Center in Denver, Colorado. The Colorado Avalanche and the Calgary Flames.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, let us browse the goalie matchup here. When in doubt, I usually look at the goalies. It will be Kari Ramo for the Flames, and it will be Semyon Varlamov for the Avalanche. I think I will have to go with the Avalanche for this one. The Flames have not been doing all that great this season.
No, but I'm gonna go with the Flames just because you chose the Avalanche.
Oh boy. And lastly, from the SAP Center at San Jose, in San Jose, California, the West Side Story matchup, the San Jose Sharks and the Winnipeg Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you always want me going first now.
Yep, I'm feeling that way now.
Well, let's see the goalie matchup. Connor Hellebuck for the Jets and Martin Jones for the Sharks. Interesting. I will go with the Sharks here.
All right. I'm going to go with the Jets here.
All right. And there you have it. Those are the picks. Once again, our upset picks. Isaac goes with the hometown favorite and picks his Toronto Maple Leafs to defeat my St. Louis Blues. In my upset pick, I picked the Carolina Hurricanes at home to defeat the Nashville Predators, splitting the season series. And that will bring us to the end of this episode. It is 3:53 p.m. Central Time. This has been the B&I Show. I am Blake. You can find me on Twitter. My handle there is at @ShettenByKirk. You can find me on Reddit. My username there is BTownBomb. For Isaac, you can find him on Twitter. His handle there is at @ShutUpIsaac_. And you can find him on Reddit. His username there is ShutUpIsaac. For Our HockeyCast, you can find us on Twitter. Our handle there is at Our HockeyCast. You can log on to our subreddit. Our address there is Our HockeyCast. You can log on to ourhockeycast.com for previous episodes of this, the B&I Show, and other shows. And you can do that same thing on our YouTube page. Our handle there is Our HockeyCast. For Isaac, I am Blake. This has been the B&I Show, and we are signing off.